3 haunting stalker stories that will haunt you forever. The shocking truth revealed. The night was dark, a shroud of mystery cloaking the small town of Millfield. Shadows danced under the flickering streetlights, as if alive. The air was thick with eerie silence, punctuated only by a few distant howls and the rustling of leaves. In these haunted streets lurked a danger that sent shivers down spines. A stalker who seemed to drift in and out of the shadows, an enigma wrapped in fear. What did he want? And why was he always there, watching? It all started when Emily Tucker noticed him. Just a blur in the corner of her eye, at first a man in a long jacket, always hanging around the edge of her vision. She thought it was nothing. A trick of her tired mind, perhaps. But as time went on, the routine of his presence became harder to shake off. Each morning, he was there, not just on her way to work but appearing closer each day, lurking in places he shouldn't be. A chill crept into her bones. And then there was the blood-curdling scream that shattered the midnight silence one October night. It echoed through the stillness, rattling windows and hearts alike. Most who heard it froze, stricken with fear, unable to move, except she did. Emily rushed out, her heart pounding like a war drum. She stumbled into the dark, a beacon of bravery tangled with an undertone of dread. She had to find out what happened. She needed to be the hero in her own story. But the closer she got, the more that familiar figure loomed at the edge of her vision, turning the courage into pure terror. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment she glanced back, he was gone. Just like that. Like a ghost slipping through her fingers. Emily looked around, desperate for a clue, anything. But no. Only the cold wind whipped through the trees, whispering secrets. Was it just her imagination? Or was there more to him, lurking in the depths of her subconscious? The unknown was a clawing reality, and it felt sharp, like glass. Millfield was forever changed that night. Days turned into weeks, and everyone whispered about the strange occurrences, each stalking footstep echoing louder than the last. Her friends, once so lively, now shied away from the edges of alleys. Even those with the strongest trust and bravery grew restless, exchanging worried glances. Who was this specter? What did he want from Emily? As doubt crept in, a new feeling slithered alongside fear, the thrill of the chase. It clawed at her curiosity, urging her to unravel his secrets. But the question loomed: was she ready to uncover the truth that shimmered like dark magic in the night? The stage was set, and the players were still hiding in the shadows. Would Emily give in to the thrill or let fear seize her? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: the night was far from over. The next evening, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that twisted against the cracked pavement of Millfield. Emily Tucker felt an urgent restlessness gnawing at her gut, brighter than the streetlights flickering to life. She had to understand the predator stalking her. With trembling hands, she pulled out her phone, a simple lifeline to the outside world, and turned on its flashlight. Its weak beam struggled against the swallowing darkness, but it was enough to give her some courage. As she walked the familiar path, each footfall seemed louder than a drumbeat in the hollow stillness. The sharp tang of fear mixed with determination fueled her resolve. She scanned every corner, every alley. What if he was watching her again? What if she found out something hidden in plain sight? Then, in a moment that felt surreal, she caught sight of him, a silhouette at the far end of the street, under the ghostly glow of a streetlight. He was standing still, just out of reach, his long coat fluttering slightly in the evening breeze. Emily's heart raced, and a portion of her screamed to run away. But another part, the part that craved answers, forced her feet to step forward. As she closed in, shadows danced around him, flickering as if alive. The air thickened, and each step felt weighted. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice bold yet wavering. The figure didn't move, he stayed still, only watching. And in that heavy silence, a shiver crawled down her spine. "Emily," the voice came, low and resounding, sending chills racing through her veins. It was groundless, echoing, as if the darkness itself spoke. Immediately, she faltered. How did he know her name? Was her fear justified, or was she walking into a trap? "You've been looking for me," he continued, his words slithering through the air. "I'm the truth you fear to find." The shadowy figure took a step forward, and in that instant, the wind howled, as if warning her of the danger lurking nearby. A sudden scream shattered the thick atmosphere, splitting the tension like glass, and Emily spun around, breath quickening. The sound echoed, familiar yet terrifying. Another neighbor? Had they also heard the call in the night? Panic bubbled as she glanced back at the figure, but he had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. A flicker of movement caught her eye, and before she could react, she felt a firm grip on her shoulder, her heart stopped, fear electrifying every nerve ending. Emily turned slowly to confront her fears, her entire being screaming for an explanation. The figure came into view no longer a shadow, but a face she recognized. It was Mark, her old friend, his eyes wide with terror. "You shouldn't be here." He watching, but just as she opened her mouth to ask what he meant, another scream ripped through the air, sharper and closer than before. It was a haunting blend of panic and sorrow, echoing from the very heart of Millfield. "Emily, we need to go. Now." Mark's voice rang, pulling her back to the immediate danger. But a different instinct tugged at her, a need to uncover the truth, a hunger she couldn't comprehend. What twisted web was unfolding in her town? Emily sprinted after Mark, their footsteps pounding against the ground, shadows clawing at their heels. The night was no longer just a backdrop, it had become a threatening entity in its own right, ominous and dark. As they raced forward, the secrets of Millfield sought them out, hiding in every nook, whispering their warnings. "Wait!" Emily shouted, pulling Mark to a stop. "Tell me everything." Mark hesitated, the frantic edge of his breath mingling with fear. But what he didn't know, what Emily felt deep down, was that the truth was about to expose itself in ways they could never imagine. Because buried beneath the surface of Millfield wasn't just a stalker. It was a harbinger of something far worse. And as the echoes of a new scream pierced the silence, Emily knew the real story had only just begun. "Emily, listen to me." Mark gasped, his grip on her arm tightening as if trying to anchor himself in the chaos. "We have to get to the old church now." The urgency in his voice sent another wave of panic coursing through her. The church? Why would they go there? Yet, as the uneven pavement crunched under their feet, something deep within her felt compelled to follow him. They sprinted down the dimly lit streets, the muffled echoes of the town seemingly holding their breath. Emily could still hear the haunting screams reverberating in her mind, slicing through the night like a jagged knife. "We can't go there," Emily said breathlessly, her heart hammering. "What is happening? Why the church?" "It's connected." He turned to her, his eyes wild. "People have been disappearing, Emily. The last one was at the church. They say it's cursed." The very mention of a curse made Emily shudder. "Cursed how? What do you mean?" She pressed, but Mark was already pulling her into a narrow alley. The air felt heavy, mingled with the scent of rain-soaked earth and fear. "Just trust me," he shouted, urgency spilling from his words like all the hopes of Millfield collapsing. The alley opened up onto a side street leading to the old church, its silhouette piercing the dark sky like a twisted tooth. Emily glanced back, half expecting to see the shadowy figure lurking behind them, waiting for the right moment to strike. But the street, eerily quiet now, gave no hint of the unseen eyes she felt watching. "I don't understand," she uttered, the words tumbling from her mouth. "Why does he want us?" Mark took a deep breath, his voice raw with fear. He's hunting people who know too much. It all started when the town began to cover up the disappearances, Emily. When they tried to silence the truth. Her mind raced. Secrets. Lies. A twist of guilt wrapped around her, mingled with determination. What truth? What happened to them? They reached the steps of the church, pausing to catch their breath. Mark turned to her, his face pale in the dim light. There are rumors, dark things that happened in this town. People who were sacrificing for power. There's a reason the church was left abandoned. Glancing up at the old building, its steeple ominous against the moonlight, Emily felt a shiver crawl down her spine. This was where it all began. Every horror laid bare at their feet. Suddenly, the door creaked open, revealing a low flicker of light within. Without thinking, Mark pulled her inside, the darkness swallowing them whole. Emily's heartbeat drummed in her ears while her eyes struggled to adjust. The musty air was thick with stories begging to be uncovered. Then there was the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing in the church's vast emptiness. Panic seized her, and she grabbed Mark's arm. "Did you hear that?" Mark nodded, his breath short. "We're not alone." A shadow moved in the corner of the flickering light, and Emily felt her skin prickle. The hairs stood up on the back of her neck as the footsteps grew louder, echoing like the heartbeat of the darkness surrounding them. Mark's gaze darted around, panic igniting anew. "We need to find a way out. Now." But before they could react, the shadow coalesced into form. The figure stepped into the light, a grin spreading across his face, a visage she recognized. "Did you really think you could uncover the truth?" It was him, the stalker. His voice dripped with malice. "Welcome to the end of your search." Emily could only watch in horror. The truth was more terrifying than she ever imagined. Would they really uncover the darkest secrets of Millfield, or had they stepped into a trap with no escape? The chilling silence crackled in the air as the weight of the moment bore down on them. What would happen next? Emily's breath quickened, panic rising like bile in her throat. The way the stalker smirked, as if his twisted plans were now unfolding perfectly, sent a fresh wave of dread crashing over her. "Mark, we can't stay here," she hissed, her voice barely a whisper under the oppressive weight of the dark church. "Oh, we're exactly where we're meant to be," the stalker purred, stepping closer, the flickering candlelight dancing off his face, illuminating the cruel joy etched into his features. Mark moved protectively in front of her, eyes ablaze with defiance. "What do you want?" he demanded, clenching his fists as he positioned himself between Emily and the threatening figure. "Want? Oh, it's not what I want. It's what the town needs. You have no idea what you're meddling with." His laughter echoed off the decaying walls, each sound like a curse weaving through the air. "The church holds power, ancient and dark, and it craves knowledge. Those who seek the truth well, they'll learn it the hard way." Mark took a step forward, but Emily pulled on his arm. "Don't!" she shouted, dread knotting in her stomach. Every instinct screamed for them to run, but curiosity pricked at her too. What truth was he talking about? The stalker seemed to sense her hesitation and leaned in closer, his voice silky, almost hypnotic. "You think people disappear without a trace? Not here. They're gifts. Our town requires something in return for its sins." He gestured dramatically around the church, its crumbling interior now alive with ghostly shadows. "What are you talking about?" Mark challenged, although his bravado seemed to waver in light of the stalker's gleeful menace. "The sacrifices. Every century, the church demands retribution." The stalker laughed, unleashing a wave of mania. "Your friends. They were too curious and they knew too much. Like you too. You're here to join them." A chill sieved through Emily, feeling the air shift around her like a tightening noose. "Mark, we need to get out of here." Suddenly, the church's massive wooden doors slammed shut, reverberating through the vast space. The sound echoed like a death knell, sealing their fate. The stalker grinned wider, stepping back and gesturing toward the altar, half hidden in shadows. "Welcome to the altar of truth, my dear friends. Watch closely, and you might just unravel the mystery if you survive." Mark lunged again, but before he could make a move, the floor shook violently beneath their feet. Emily stumbled, grasping the nearest pillar to steady herself as the flickering candles flickered dangerously. The church was alive, groaning and creaking as if the very structure protested against the stagnant air, holding secrets of its own. Light after light flickered out, plunging them deeper into a suffocating darkness. "Stay close," Mark shouted, his voice swallowed by the shadows. His presence was a balm, yet the creeping terror gnawed at her resolve. Just then, a low whisper floated through the air, echoing her fears. Join us, the voices of the missing resounded, a chorus of sorrow flowing through the chill. Emily froze, her heart hammering, instinct screaming that something unseen was closing in. "Emily!" Mark's shout broke her trance. "We have to run." He tugged her toward a side door hidden in the darkness. She followed, fear propelling her forward. With every step, the whispers intensified. The memories of the lost swirled around them, becoming tangible, suffocating her with dread. Had they really stumbled onto a path woven with blood and sorrow? Without warning, the stalker's laughter filled the air once again, a dark melody that chilled her to the bone. "You think you can escape? The truth is your prison now." They barreled through the door, but it led to a shadowy chamber descending deep beneath the church. Cold air rushed past like an icy hand of fate. The moment hung heavy with uncertainty. What waited for them below? Would this place reveal the truth or seal their doom forever? The shadows closed in, and beneath the church could lie salvation or damnation. Emily gripped Mark's hand tightly, heart racing as they descended into the unknown. Was escaping this nightmare even possible, or were they racing towards something far worse? The descent felt like an eternity, the darkness swallowing them whole as they stepped deeper into the earth beneath the church. Each creak of the floor echoed ominously, drowning out the frantic drum of Emily's heart. Cold seeped through her clothes, tightening around her like a vice. "Do you think we're really safe here?" she whispered, dread gnawing at her insides. Mark shook his head, his eyes scanning the shadows that clung to the stone walls like dark memories. "Safe? I don't think that's a word we can use right now. But we have to keep moving. Whatever that guy is planning, it won't be good for us." The air throbbed with an eerie energy, thick and heavy, as they stumbled through the vast, low cavern illuminated only by the faint glow of flickering torches set into the walls. Those flames danced like spirits, teasing hints of old carvings, crude images of figures being bound, their faces twisted in terror. Emily shuddered. "Look!" she gasped, pointing to a stone altar at the chamber's center. There, layers of dark stains contrasted sharply with the pale stone. It almost seemed alive, pulsating with a latent fury. "Is that blood?" Her voice broke, the gruesome sight sending waves of nausea soaring through her gut. Mark swallowed audibly, his determination flickering. "It can't be. This is insane. We need to find a way out now." But the whispers began again, weaving in and out of the shadows. Join us, they wrapped around Emily's mind, pulling her deeper into despair. Each voice that echoed through her head felt familiar, like echoes of her lost friends. Desperately, she clutched Mark's arm, as panic rose again, swelling like a storm inside her. Suddenly, the sound of dripping water broke through the chaos, a slow, steady rhythm that became the heartbeat of the chamber. It seemed to throb in sync with her own pulse, an unsettling reminder that they were not alone. Emily's eyes darted around, searching for the source, and then she saw them, a series of shadowy figures lining the far wall. They moved with a disjointed grace, their faces obscured, yet she could feel their eyes boring into her, reminiscent of the headlines that haunted the town, "Missing Persons." "Mark, we're not alone," her voice trembled. The figures slowly turned, their forms coming into view just as the pendulum of fear swung higher. They were dressed in tattered clothing, skin as pale as moonlight, mouths agape in silent screams. They shifted closer, their movements synchronized, an unnatural dance that sent chills spiraling through Emily. "Mark!" she yelled, instinctively pulling him closer. "We have to." Before she could finish, the stalker's menacing laughter echoed through the chamber, sharper now, invading their minds. "You think you can escape the truth? They chose to join us willingly. You will too. Only then will you find peace." "No way. We're not like them." Mark shouted back, his voice fierce over the rising dread. The shadows around them pulsed with interest, the figures leaning in as if drawn to that challenge. Emily felt something in her shift, an urge to flee but also a morbid curiosity about the fate of those lost souls. What could it mean to join them? Was it oblivion, or something far worse? A sudden jolt reverberated through the earth, knocking them to their knees. The chamber grew colder, the air sharper. Everything around them quaked, rocks tumbled from above, and dust fell like ash. "Now!" Mark yelled, grasping her hand again as they pulled themselves up, ready to run. Yet, as they raced toward the darkest corners of the chamber, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them closely, something far more powerful than fear. Behind them, the whispers grew louder, urgent. "Join us, don't fight, it will be better." Emily's heart raced. They had to make a choice. Face whatever lurked behind or plunge deeper into the shadows. What awaited them in the next darkness? Would the truth be their undoing, or could they find a way back to the light? As they dashed toward the last flickers of hope, the ground beneath pulsed harder, almost as though the church itself was alive, demanding their presence. But would they heed its call, or find a way to break free? The shadows whispered promises, but Emily felt the sharp pang of fear, knowing that the answers they sought were steeped in darkness, and the truth would be more horrific than they imagined. They raced forward, the ground trembling beneath their feet, unaware of what awaited them just beyond the next curve of the ancient tunnel. The tunnel twisted violently ahead, becoming a claustrophobic passage that seemed to press in on them. Emily and Mark stumbled, the walls slick with moisture and something more sinister. Each step sent ripples of dread through Emily, echoing with the fading whispers. "Keep going," Mark urged, his grip firm on her hand as they dashed down the winding corridor. The shadows danced around them, alive and eager. There was a warmth on her back, a soft caress that felt both inviting and dangerous. Just ahead, the faint flickering light of another torch shimmered, an oasis in this darkness. Hope surged within Emily, battling against the shadows that wanted to turn her heart to ice. As they reached the torch, its flame sputtered violently, casting eerie shadows that twisted and morphed across the stone walls. "What is this place?" she panted, desperate for answers. Mark's face was strained, revealing the battle inside him between fear and determination. "I wish I knew," he replied. "But whatever it is, it doesn't want us here." Then they heard it, a scuttling sound, like fingernails skittering across stone. A chill washed over Emily. Her heart pumped harder as the sound grew closer, echoing in the confined space. "Mark, what is that?" "I don't know. Just move." They pushed onward, exhilaration and terror making their limbs move in a frantic dance. The light faded behind them, leaving them cocooned in darkness once more, only to be replaced by an unholy sound echoing down the corridor. Laughter. Cold and mocking. "Did you really think you could escape?" A voice taunted from the shadows. It was solid and sinister, wrapping around them like barbed wire. The pair whipped around, searching for the source, but the darkness loomed heavier. "Run!" Mark shouted, pulling Emily forcefully along. Every instinct urged them to flee, yet something about the laughter made her pause. Memories twitched at the edges of her mind, images of missing faces, friends who had never returned. And then she felt it, the cold touch of understanding creeping in. What if the whispers were victims too? What if they could find a way to break the cycle that kept them trapped? "Wait, Mark!" she shouted, yanking her hand free. "We might be able to help them." "What are you talking about?" "We can't help anyone right now. We need to get out." Panic edged into his voice. Maybe if we try to communicate, she stammered, her breath quickening. They might know a way out. Mark hesitated, his eyes wide with disbelief. You want to talk to them? Are you insane? But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this was their only option. Please, just trust me. As she closed her eyes, the laughter ebbed to a hush. She concentrated, summoning the strength to connect with the sorrowful souls that roamed this hell. If you can hear me, we're not your enemies. Help us. She cried out into the void. The response came instantaneously, the shadows converged, swirling around like a vicious storm. The figures emerged, their mouths still agape in silent screams, yet now their eyes flickered with a semblance of recognition. They were trapped, just as Emily feared. Join us, the voices echoed, pleading and demanding all at once. Mark grasped her shoulder, shaking her. Emily. Focus, we need to move. But as the shadows pressed closer, the looming silhouettes began to whisper again, sharper this time. The air vibrated with a potent mixture of despair and desperation, and Emily felt it seep into her very core. Join us, they urged, each soul urging her with their eyes. Terror tangled with pity, and Emily's resolve began to falter. Was there truly a way out, or was this cycle destined to repeat? Could they help the lost souls escape their fate, or would she and Mark be swallowed up into the abyss? In that moment, Emily found herself torn between bravery and fear. Just as she opened her mouth to speak again, the ground quaked violently, shaking the very foundation of the tunnel. Run! Mark yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. But as they turned to bolt back the way they came, it was too late. The shadows surged forward. Hungry and relentless, ready to claim them, with the threat of becoming another pair of lost souls lurking in the dark, Emily felt the walls closing in. In that instant, her choices vanished, leaving only the echoes of the whispering shadows reverberating in her mind. Would she dare to resist the darkness that sought to consume them? Or would their fate be forever entwined with the cursed history of the church? Now, as they ran through the swirling shadow, she couldn't see the way out, but she could feel the heavy pulse of impending doom behind them, pushing her towards the edge of something unseen. What awaited them on the other side? Emily dashed forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins as the shadows reached for them with icy fingers. The laughter swirled around them, a cacophony of regret and longing, taunting their every move. Each turn they took was met with darkness, more oppressive than the last. It was as if the tunnel itself had a mind, shifting to trap them in its insatiable embrace. Keep going. Mark shouted again, but his voice was laced with desperation. The shadows seemed to mold around them, vibrating with a life of their own. What do we do? She gasped, breath coming in ragged bursts. We have to try to find a way out. Just, focus. Mark urged, his grip tightening on her wrist as they rounded another corner. The earth trembled again beneath their feet, debris falling from the ancient stone ceiling. With a surge of panic, Emily shoved her way past her fear. We need to communicate, Mark. They're trapped. She cried out, but even she could feel her spirit wavering against the consuming darkness. Mark stumbled, his eyes darting wildly as the laughter grew maddeningly closer. This is insane. We're not talking to them, it'll only drag us in. But something deep within her urged her to persist, to believe. We can't leave them like this. Suddenly, a deafening crack split the ceiling above them, and dust plummeted, forcing Emily to cover her mouth. The shadows writhed, drawn towards the chaos, and for a brief moment, Emily caught sight of the exit, a pinprick of light shimmering in the darkness. Over there! She screamed, pointing toward the hope that beckoned to them. They sprinted, limbs pumping furiously, their hearts beating a frantic rhythm against the walls of despair that threatened to close in. As they lunged toward the light, a figure materialized suddenly among the swirling mist. Its features contorted in anguish, eyes hollow yet filled with fury. Join us! It screeched, reaching out as if to pull them back into the depths of the void. Emily, don't look! Mark shouted, but she was transfixed, held by an otherworldly force. The figure held the remnants of a loved one, someone Emily recognized from her past, a familiar face twisted into silent agony. No. She gasped, the memories flooding back, the joy of shared laughter, the warmth that once surrounded that face. We can help you. A hope sprang anew, igniting a flame in her chest. Join us, it whispered again, desperation lacing every syllable, echoing in Emily's ears like a twisted lullaby. Mark yanked on her arm, pulling her back just as she felt herself begin to drift toward the apparition. Emily, what are you doing? We can't help them. He shook her, panic etched across his face. But something flickered in the shadows, a light. A realization. Perhaps this was more than just an exit, it could be their salvation. If we reach the light, maybe we can free them. She insisted, resolve firming her voice. Do you really think they'll let us go? They're trying to trap us just like them. Mark pleaded, eyes wide. The figure lunged again, and in that moment, Emily understood. It wasn't about fighting alone, they needed to show the souls trapped in this nightmare that there was hope for them and for herself. She turned to Mark, determination in her gaze. Trust me. We can save them. They surged together toward the light, but the shadows screamed in fury behind them. The figure lunged, the ground beneath them cracking. As they barreled toward freedom, Emily felt the oppressive weight of the ancient ghosts pull at her heart, a bind that threatened to drag her down with them. The walls vibrated with roars of anguish, shadows whipping violence all around. And just before they burst through, the last tendrils of shadow entwined around Mark's legs, yanking him back. No! Emily screamed as time slowed. She turned, the light growing distant that he was staring into her eyes, fear eclipsed by a sudden clarity. Don't look back. But it was too late. She hesitated, heartbreaking. Would she abandon him to the darkness? As she plunged into the sunlight, a scream echoed back from the tunnel, haunting and despairing. Was it Mark? Or an echo from countless souls forever trapped? With the light enveloping her, realization dawned. The question lingered in her mind: had they just escaped, or had they unwittingly opened the gates for something much darker? And as shadows danced on the edge of her vision, she couldn't shake the looming uncertainty. What would come next? Emily stumbled into the sunlight, gasping for air as she collapsed onto the grassy ground. The warmth of the day flooded over her, but it felt cold compared to the heat of the tunnel. Her heart beat violently in her chest, a drum echoing with doubt and fear. She squinted at the bright sky, hardly believing she was alive. Mark! She cried out, the name bursting free from her lips like an emergency alarm. No response came. Panic gripped her, seizing her throat. She turned, her mind racing. The tunnel had closed behind her, a solid wall of darkness, but lingering whispers floated on the breeze, beckoning her to return. Mark! She shouted again, her voice trembling with desperation. No reply. Only silence, but it was thick, pregnant with the ghosts of what had just occurred. She pressed her palms against the earth, willing herself to breathe through the panic. What had happened to him? As she stood, the sunlight felt like a cruel tease. The thrill of escape was overshadowed by dread. She took a few shaky steps back toward the entrance, hoping against hope that the darkness would relent. Emily, the chill in her spine caught hold and twisted. That voice, soft yet filled with pain, was unmistakable. Mark's voice. Where are you? She called out, straining her ears to catch any trace of him. Her heartbeat quickened as if responding to the call of the abyss. Help me. Emily, the urgency in his tone clawed at her heart. She took a step back toward the mouth of the tunnel, hesitating, her instincts warring with her desire to rescue him. The shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, a whirling vortex waiting to ensnare her again. Each moment spent debating felt like an eternity. Mark, I'm coming. She shouted, stepping closer to the darkness. It was like leaning towards a forbidden flame. As she reached the entrance, something caught her eye. A shimmering object lay on the ground, Mark's old wristwatch, the one he never took off. It glinted in the light like a token of hope. She picked it up, her heart aching as memories flooded back, camping trips, laughter, plans for a future that suddenly felt impossibly fragile. "Mark! I have your watch!" she yelled, clutching it tightly. A flicker of movement stirred in the shadow. "Are you okay?" Desperate silence followed her question, and doubt seeped into her resolve like a slow poison. "Emily." The voice was barely above a whisper, but it grazed against the chill of fear, sending her pulse racing. "Hold on!" she shouted, pushing the watch deeper into her pocket as she took a step into the tunnel. The darkness swallowed her fingers, a consuming embrace, then, abruptly, a shadow surged forth, brushing against her. She recoiled, shocked. That laughter from before rang again, chilling her bones. "Join us!" It rolled like thunder along the walls, mocking her once more. "No!" she screamed, shaking her head furiously, refusing to listen. Mark needed her. She couldn't let the darkness take hold. She had to find him no matter the cost. "Leave!" A voice edged with resentment rasped from the gloom. "You cannot help him. He chose the shadows." The shadows around her quivered in response, a collective sigh of discontent. "No. I'm not leaving. I want to abandon him." She took another step forward, the shadows retreating momentarily as if recoiling from her defiance. And then, through the veil of darkness, a flicker of light appeared, not the same as before, but brighter, beckoning her in a different way. "Emily, please!" Mark's voice again, now filled with an electric vulnerability. She rushed toward the light, heart racing with resolve. The chasms of fear were cold, inviting her to retreat, but she couldn't stop. She laced her fingers around the pulse of hope as she called out, "I'm coming." But as she neared the glow, it pulsated, revealing not only light but shadows taking form, shapes she recognized from her past, flickering in and out like starlight. Each face a mirror of herself, each one holding her gaze, feeding her fear, and then, an unsettling question rooted itself deep within her mind: if she saved him, what would he bring back with him? Heart pounding, Emily realized the light wasn't just her escape but the threshold to something far darker. What choice lay before her, and what consequence would it carry? "Mark," she whispered, caught between the past and the uncertain future, a future that threatened to engulf them all. With her heart racing, she reached for the light, fully aware of the price that could come. Had she stepped into salvation or damnation? As the light flared, a final question hung in the air: would she ever truly find her way back, or had the shadows only just begun? Emily lunged toward the light, an intense beam that shimmered with an urgency she could hardly comprehend. The myriad shadows danced around her, their whispers blending into a sinister choir that promised both protection and peril. Her heart raced as she confronted the terrible question: what lay beyond this shifting glow? "Mark!" she called out desperately, her voice steadying for a brief moment, bolstered by adrenaline. "Help me!" The plea sliced through the glow, a haunting melody that resonated deep within her. It was filled with the kind of dread that should have made her falter. But she couldn't. Not now. Not when he needed her most. The shadows writhed as if sensing her resolve. They pushed back, crawling towards her, spilling over the edges of the light, dark fingers clutching at her ankles, trying to pull her down. Panic surged within her, fierce and unforgiving. "Let him go!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the whispers that surrounded her. The shadows hesitated, recoiling before darting in again, entangling her in their tendrils. "Stop!" Each cry felt like a desperate brush against a cold, unyielding wall. "I'm not afraid of you." Yet in truth, every echo of her own defiance carried traces of fear, making her words falter. The pulse of the light grew stronger, illuminating her surroundings, and with it came clarity. The flickering images in the dance of shadows took clearer forms, faces she recognized, friends she'd lost, dreams that had decayed into despair. Memories flickered like broken film frames, each a shard of her heart. "Mark," she breathed, pain clawing at her throat. "Where are you?" Emily. His voice came stronger now, a beacon illuminating the darkness he was trapped in. The shadows writhed, as if angered by her commitment to him. "Do you want him?" One shadow coiled around her, echoing in a voice that twisted and turned like a dark wind. "You'll have to pay the price." A cold knot tightened in her stomach. "What do you want?" she croaked, desperation forcing the words out of her mouth. "Everything." The figure laughed, it sounded like broken glass underfoot. Each syllable was charged with a hunger so vast it made her head spin. "His pain is your burden now." At that moment, realization dawned. The weight resting on her shoulders had never been lighter. She wouldn't carry it. "No!" she screamed, shoving the shadows back, her energy roiling around her like a shield. The light surged forward, causing the shadows to screech in rage, like the howl of 1,000 souls betrayed. "Mark!" she called, heart pounding as she pushed closer to the light. It illuminated a path through the chaos, revealing her beloved's silhouette swaying within the shadows, where tendrils wrapped tightly around him. "Get out!" he gasped, face pale, filled with terror. "Emily, don't come." But how could she turn away? She drifted closer, drawn by an invisible thread, and reached through the swirling darkness clutching at him. "Hold on to me!" she shouted, reaching for him. As their fingers almost touched, a resounding yell erupted from the shadows, a visceral scream that shook the ground beneath her. "Join us," they sang, their voices dripping with malice. "You belong in the dark like him." The tunnel of light pulsed, flickering dangerously, and for a moment, she felt her strength waning, threatened by their grasp. But deep inside, love roared like a blaze, it ignited her, made her resist the temptation to retreat. "Mark!" She lunged, and just as she thought hope slipped away, their fingers intertwined. A howl erupted from the shadows, and at that moment, Emily knew the storm was just beginning. The dark world they faced pulsed with a sinister promise, and she could feel the weight of irreversible choices fall onto her shoulders. As the shadows closed in, she held on tighter, heart racing, but the question lingered cruelly at the edge of her mind: if they escaped together, what fragments of darkness would they bring back into the light? With her pulse racing in her ears, the next step became a suffocating dilemma waiting to be unraveled, the haunting promise. Threatening to devour her every breath, would they make it out alive, or was the darkness claiming them once and for all? Emily's fingers squeezed Mark's tightly, their connection igniting a fierce resolve. The shadows writhed around them, angry whispers echoing threats, but she wouldn't let go. Love birthed courage as the light pulsed bright, cutting through the dark like a knife through fog. "We'll get through this," she shouted, not just to him, but to the prison of shadows looming around them. The moment she wrapped herself around him, they felt a surge of force that bridged the gap between hope and despair. The darkness recoiled for a split second, a hesitance that flickered like dying embers. Emily took a deep breath, fueled by every moment they had shared, and shouted, "We aren't afraid of you." But the shadows roared back, a collective rage that enveloped them in terror. "You think you can resist? You think you can break the cycle?" they hissed, slithering closer, feeding off their fear. Mark's breaths came in short gasps as he wrestled against the tendrils wrapping tighter around him. "I want to let you take him," Emily cried, her desperation boiling over. "He's not your sacrifice. Mark, we need to fight together. Use your strength." As if fueled by her words, he locked eyes with her. The murky fear that clouded his gaze started to dissolve into something fierce and all-encompassing resolve. "I'm not leaving you behind," he managed to yell over the chaos. With a sudden burst of energy, he yanked on her hand, pulling her deeper into the light, pushing against the shadows that wanted to engulf them. Around them, the whispers morphed into chaos. The binding shadows were howling now, clawing at their heels like ravenous beasts, but together, they powered through, fueled by the urgency of their bond. Each step was a heartbeat, a single pulse echoing defiance against the moaning darkness. "This way!" Mark shouted, motioning toward the growing light illuminating the entrance of the cavern, a glittering beacon that beckoned them with promise. But darkness clung to them, clawing desperately, ripping at their clothes and tearing at their confidence. Faces twisted in agony overtook the shadows, representatives of the souls trapped in this hell. Join us. You cannot escape. Their voices blended into a horrific symphony of despair and rejection. Mark. Stick with me. Emily yelled, her voice unwavering against the storm. We can break this. He nodded, determination etched in every line of his face. Together. With their grips tight and hearts linked in resolve, they charged to the now bright opening, but the shadows lashed back, striking like vipers. Swirling darkness grasped at their limbs, grappling against their efforts. Suddenly, a hard pull yanked at Emily's ankle, and a scream erupted from her throat, but Mark reacted quickly. He wrapped his arm around her waist, anchoring her to him. You've got to trust me. Then he spun, spinning them out of reach of the deadly tendrils. Emily gasped, feeling the weight of fear recede, replaced by the flickering warmth of hope. They collided into the light's embrace, every nerve buzzing with life and love, their sanctuary juxtaposed against the onslaught beyond, but as they crossed the threshold of light, relief surged through Emily only to be punctuated with a breathless gasp. Darkness clawed at them one last time, a final, desperate lunge. The relentless shadows were serpents trying to drag them back into the dusk. No! Emily screamed, forcing every ounce of emotion into that single word, shaking her fists toward the encroaching dark. You will not take us. With their feet planted firmly on the edge of twilight, with every ounce of will flowing from their hearts, a brilliant flash ignited light from her hands, illuminating the shadows in iridescent brilliance potent enough to penetrate even the deepest gloom. The shadows froze, howling in anguish as the light consumed their existence, burning away the terror and grief they carried. Forward! Mark cried, pulling her through the final veil of darkness into the light. They stumbled out onto the grass, the sky blue and clear, nothing but the chirping of birds greeting their return to the world, a world that thrummed with life. Emily dropped to her knees, clutching the familiar ground, a reminder of freedom. Everything felt raw and overwhelming. But where was Mark? Her pulse quickened, breath catching in her throat. Mark? She scanned around, heart racing. Then she spotted him, kneeling a few feet away, anxiety hashing across his face. Oh God, are you okay? She rushed to him, dropping to his side. Yeah, I think so, he replied, his voice steadying. Relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by concern as she noticed his shaking hands. What happened back there, Em? Darkness tried to take us, she whispered, wrapping her arms around him. They claimed we were theirs. I could hear them. His grip tightened. They're gone now. We broke free. Emily nodded, but an unsettling emotion settled heavy in her stomach. But what if they come back? What if we open something we can't close? Mark's eyes softened, and the worry deepened there, but he shook his head resolutely. As long as we're together, we'll fight against it. We faced the darkness, and we survived. I don't know if we're truly free, she admitted. The memories they linger. Maybe. Mark paused, and then added, but we'll make new ones. Stronger ones. Together. And as they shared a gentle smile, the shadows receded, trapped within the dark alcove they had escaped. A weight lifted, yet the lingering tension was coiled deep within her, embedded like a remnant of past anguish. They had survived, yes, but at what cost? Would they be haunted by that night forever? Taking a deep breath, Emily whispered, "Let us go home." With weary but determined hearts, they stood hand in hand, letting the warmth of the day wash over them as they took their first steps back into the light of Millfield. And somewhere, a whisper echoed in the wind, a reminder that darkness would always flicker at the edges of their lives, but together, they held the power to keep it at bay. As they walked on, they knew their fight wasn't over, it was only just beginning. Now, for all of you out there listening, remember this: if you want to continue journeying with us through incredible stories, you need to subscribe now. Don't let fear hold you back. Smash that like button to help us feed the algorithm. Share your thoughts about this wild ride in the comments below. I want to hear all your theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. It's all about community, and we're in this together.